Alright, sorry about that. Problem number 24. Sam wanted to graph the equation y equals 2x minus 7. She plotted her y-intercept point and started to count the slope. Which of the following should she do? So here she already plotted her y-intercept, so all she's worried about is the slope. So all she's worried about is that 2. How does she count the 2? Basically what we do is we take the 2 over here. Very first thing we want to do is we want to make the 2 into a fraction. The reason I want to make it into a fraction is I want to do rise over run. Oh man, this is a bad camera day. Alright, I basically want to do rise over run. With rise over run, I want to make sure that I take that 2 and I make it into a fraction. So anytime you have a whole number, the easiest way to make it into a fraction would be 2 divided by 1. And then basically we just kind of go right across. So the rise of 2, that tells me which way to go. So rise of 2, positive 2, means that I go up 2 units. And then on the bottom we have a run of 1, so that tells me running 1 or going positive or to the right 1 unit. So if we go up 2 and then to the right 1, that should be how I count my slopes. So the answer here is going to be C. Oops, sorry, just kidding. D. I didn't read carefully. Count up 2 and then right 1. Right, we jump over to 27. Alice wants to rent a car for spring break. She calls the company and finds out that the cost is $39 per day with unlimited miles. Write an equation that shows the cost of renting a car for X days. So basically the 39 and then the per day tells me that this is going to be the X. So my equation is actually really simple. It's y equals 39x. And that's basically it. Unlimited miles, so the miles don't really matter. The only thing that matters here is the number of days that I rent. So I have $39 times the number of days. So if I rent 1 day, 39 times 1. If I rent 2 days, 39 times 2. And so forth and so on. So this would be the equation that I have. 29. The equation y equals 2x plus 3 is graphed below. If the graph is shifted up 3 units, what will be the equation of the new graph? Alright, so my line, we have y equals 2x plus 3. The question is, what happens if, or how would my graph change if I shift it up 3 units? So basically we have to figure out which one of these, is it my M or is it my B that is affected whenever I shift up. So slope, remember, is steepness. The steepness of the line, and that's not really affected if I just go up. So if I just take that line and I shift it up a little bit, the steepness shouldn't be affected at all. Y-intercept, I like to call that the starting point. The starting point of my graph. So if I increase or I shift my graph up 3 units, all I'm really doing is just changing where it starts or changing the starting point. So the thing that's going to be changing in this case is going to be my y-intercept. So really this one's actually pretty simple. We just go ahead and take our equation. So we have y equals 2x plus 3. And all I really do to shift this up 3 units is I just add 3 to my y-intercept. So everything else stays the same, or everything else comes down. So we have y equals 2x still. And then the 3 plus 3, that's going to give me plus 6. So my new equation would be y equals 2x plus 6. Alright, number 30, it says for the expression 4x minus 9, what is the coefficient and what is the constant? So coefficient, that's one of our vocabulary words. All that basically means is just what's the number in front of x. So my coefficient in this case would be 4. Again, that's the number in front of x. What is my constant? Constant just basically means what is the number that I keep, or that I'm adding or subtracting without really any x or any other variable attached to it. Just what's the number that's plus 3, minus 2, you know, whatever it might be. Just plus or minus whatever number. In this case, I'm subtracting 9, so that would be my constant. My constant is -9. Alright, which equation below is represented by a horizontal line? So this time we have a horizontal line. So we have y equals mx plus b. What you basically want to understand is that your horizontal line happens whenever we have a slope of 0. So if my slope is 0, if my m is 0, then 0 times anything, no matter what my x is, would cancel that part out. So my m and my x get canceled out completely, and I'm left with only the b. So the way that we always write an equation for a horizontal line is just y equals b, whatever your b might be. So that's what we look for. So we go across. I only have one that has y equals b or y equals a constant. In this case, it's going to be c. Just to double check, we can go ahead and type it into our calculator. Let me go ahead and go to my y equals 8. Oh, right on the light. Y equals 8. I go ahead and I hit graph, and you can see that line going just straight across. There's my horizontal line. Alright, so for the function f of x equals -8 minus 2, find the range when the domain is 0, 1, 2, and 3. Alright, so this is actually a problem that's really commonly missed. It's one of the easier problems though, and I'll show you how to do it. Alright, so anytime you have this type of problem where it says, here's the function, what's the range when the domain is blank? And sometimes it gives you just one number, sometimes it gives you a list. So what we want to do first, we want to go to our y equals and we want to type it in. So we have y equals 8x minus 2. Alright, next I'm going to go to my table. And before I figure out what to do with my table, I want to figure out what I'm looking for. Alright, so it says find the range. Alright, so in this case it's talking about range. So I know that we're going to be talking about domain and range. Now the way that I always figure out domain and range is I do something called Dr. Idiot. Alright, so, and it sounds kind of funny the first time you say it, Dr. Idiot, but this kind of helps you keep everything in order. So we go 2 letters at a time to write out Dr. Idiot. So we go DR, R, ID, and then finally IO. And the T at the very end makes a T chart. Alright, on this side I'm going to have my X's, on this side I'm going to have my Y's. That way I never forget which one's which. So X represents domain, independent, and input. This will be range, dependent, and output. So in this case we're looking at domain range, so I know that my range, those are my Y values. My domain then have to be my X values. So domain is my X. Alright, so when we break it down that way, this question actually becomes really easy, and we can answer it based off of our table. It says for the function f of x equals 8x minus 2, find the range or find the y values when the domain or the x values are or is 0, 1, 2, and 3. So basically this is just asking me what are the y values that match with x, or sorry, what are your y values whenever x is 0, 1, 2, and 3. So we can basically answer this one of 2 ways. You can go ahead and draw your table. We have x's and y's. So my domain, my x values are 0, 1, 2, and 3. 0, 1, 2, and 3. My range, or my y values, are just the numbers that match with them. So in this case I have a -2. I have a 6. I have a 14 for 2. And for 3 I have 22. So this is what my answer would be. So I can go ahead and say range would be the numbers -2, comma 6, comma 14, comma 22. Close them off, and that's it. So that's my range, -2, 6, 4, and 22, whenever my domain is 0, 1, 2, and 3. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward when you know what to do. Alright, 36. Kent graphed the equation y equals 4x plus 3. If he shifts the graph by changing the y-intercept to -3 but leaves the slope the same, the graph will blank. Alright, so here's his line. So he says he wants to change his y-intercept, so he wants to change his y-intercept to -3. So right now it's a plus 3. What happens if it becomes -3? Well, just like before I said that my y-intercept, I like to think of that as my starting point. So where my graph starts, so in this case the first line it starts at 1, 2, 3. It starts at above 3 units from the origin. If it were changed to -3, so if instead we had y equals 4x minus 3, so if we go from that equation to this equation, now our new equation is starting at -3, so our new equation would be 1, 2, 3. It would start right there, and again it would have the same slope or same general slope. So it says, he changes the y-intercept to -3, but leaves the slope the same. The graph will blank. We can go ahead and say that it shifts down. Our slope stays the same, but it shifts down, and it shifts down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? All I do is count my boxes down 6 units. So we can go ahead and say shifts down 6 units. And that's basically our answer. Alright, 38. We have -7 divided by 0. So what I can do is I can go to my calculator. This is just on a regular calculator page. And what I would do is I would just do -7 divided by 0, exactly how I see it. I hit enter, and it says error divided by 0. So basically anytime that you have an error divided by 0, this is also known as an undefined. Remember that you can't divide something by 0. It'll give you an error. Alright, 43. Which type of correlation is shown in the scatter plot below? So remember your correlations, you have 4 of them. So you have a positive correlation, and that's whenever all of your points are pretty much going up. That's positive or increasing. You also have a correlation whenever your points are going down. That's a negative. You also have no correlation, which is just random. And actually I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So you have your 3 correlations, which is positive, negative, or no correlation. So in this case your points are all kind of random, so this would just be no correlation. And then finally the last problem that I'll do for this video, problem 445, it says, does causation exist between the amount of water in a bathtub and how long the water has been running? So again, we go back to causation, and this is something that we talked about. The way you want to think about causation, this is kind of like cause and effect. In other words, it has to happen. There's no way for you to escape causation. So causation would be things like, I light my foot on fire and I get burned. Like there, in no instance of me lighting my foot on fire would I not get burned. As opposed to, so that's causation. There's also something called correlation. Correlation you can escape. Correlation you can escape. So on a hot day, I don't have to buy ice cream, right? I can just kind of go into the pool. I have all these different options. So just because it's hot outside doesn't mean that I have to go buy ice cream. I can do other things. So basically this is asking you, okay, does this thing have to happen? So it says, does causation exist between, alright, so we have the amount of water in a bathtub and how long the water has been running. So if I leave the water running, will the water in my bathtub increase? Or if I leave the water running, do I have an option, like do different things happen? If I leave the water running, will my bathtub catch on fire or will something else happen? The thing here is, yes, the longer I leave it on, it will cause, so cause and effect, right, it has to happen, it will cause the water in my bathtub to increase. So this would be yes, causation exists. And like I said, I will upload this video. I know that I jumped around quite a bit. I'll tackle the next 45, and once again I'll kind of jump around back and forth, and then if I have time, again guys, I don't have a lot of time, but if I have some time, I'll try to come back and maybe tackle some of the ones that I skipped. Alright guys, I hope you have a good day. Hope you guys are studying. Again, answer all the questions. Most of these take just a few seconds.